But what happened? Spending plummeted from $84 billion in 1945 to $30 billion 1 year later. They paid back the debts. 10 million Americans returned to civilian life. Economic controls lifted. Depression? None. The market adjusted quickly. Civilian employment didn't go down. It actually grew. 4 million jobs. You know what's weird? That's half of the jobs that Joe Biden says we can never replace. We should maybe try a different strategy. What do you say? Investments, exports, consumption, all boomed. Government spending scaled back. Now, how bad was it in America? Well, we created this, the hydrogen bomb. Of course, this was the height of General Motors. Housing developments, this is a big thing. All the housing that portable sewing machine, that's a big one. We had refrigerators now everywhere. Oh, we invented the electric typewriter. We had televisions. What? No, pay no attention to that. We should do what that egghead guy said we should do this time. This was a fluke, I'm sure. And so is that big hockey stick chart. The rest of the world is collapsing because they tried. While we said, no, we shouldn't be like France. They should be more like us. They went on being like France. Now we're trying to be like France, and they're starting to be like us, and we're not listening. Why? This is the one time I actually agree. Maybe we should be more like Europe. They're cutting back on entitlements and handouts. And now our arrogant president tells them that they should spend more. Don't squander the global goodwill, Barack. Don't do it. I know how much you hated that in the last president. Look, America, the choice is very clear. Relief lines or assembly lines. One of the two. That's it. Only the private sector can create this. And the government creates this. Which will it be? You decide. Next, information on Barack Obama that we found today because of a listener that will absolutely make your jaw drop. It will explain so much, and you'll ask, where was the press? Yet again. All right, it is perplexing to me on why we are spending as much money as we are. But at the same time, I am puzzled by how we are dealing with our former allies, Israel and Great Britain. Now, I have my theories, but let me share the theories of a Yale fellow, Dr. Richard Rubinstein. He was once named Distinguished Professor of the Year by Florida State. He was up, I think this was recorded at Yale. He said this about President Obama and Israel.
I believe that he is a man who is highly intelligent, knows what he's doing, and in spite of the fact that he has attracted liberal Jewish supporters, some with great wealth, his intention is to correct the historical mistake of the creation of the State of Israel.
Okay. It's quite a fascinating interview, and there's much more to it. But if you look at the stew that he marinated in with Jeremiah Wright and the new words of Jeremiah Wright, and this, I mean, could this have something to do with the obvious shift in U.S. policy towards Israel? Anything? The lack of support for Israel, especially in the latest clear-cut case of the flotilla with the video evidence to back up the Israelis, the fact that the administration has supported the UN resolution against Israel immediately, as expressed by Hillary Clinton, the fact that that's unprecedented. What explains that? What explains the way we are treating our Israeli allies? But then let's look at another ally. The inconceivable treatment of our closest ally in the world, the only major power to stand by us through the last 3 conflicts in the Middle East, Great Britain. Do you remember when we gave that big statue back, or the bust of Churchill? Right after Obama got in. It didn't make sense to me. It hasn't made sense to me. Any clues? Any clues why this gift from the English after 9/11 was boxed up and sent back. I haven't figured out a reason. Why does Obama harbor animosity towards the British? Possible. I don't know. Why would he return this bust? A listener called me this morning, said he had found information about Barack Obama's grandfather in an old Irish newspaper but couldn't verify it. I said, okay, what is it? We looked into it. The information took us about 20 minutes to find. It was out there. But until today, I'd never heard about this information. And I'm kind of in the Barack Obama business. You know what I mean? So I don't think you have. Maybe you have. What puts you in a position to act unexplainably in weird ways towards our ally? Well, something must have happened in your life, and maybe this has a part of it. The story is told by Barack Obama's step-grandmother. This is the woman he calls Granny Sarah. In 1949, Barack Obama's grandfather, Hussein Obama, was involved in Kenya's independence from Great Britain. Well, the grandfather, we think, was working for the movement to overthrow the British, and he was arrested by British authorities. Now, according to her, Granny Sarah, Grandpa was tortured for information on the insurgency. She said, and I quote, "The African warders were instructed by the white soldiers to whip him every morning and evening until he confessed." Now, I will issue this report at glennbeck.com. It's much, much more graphic than this. This is the third wife. This is the third wife of Barack Obama's grandfather, again, Granny Sarah. She is now 87. She described how white soldiers visited the prison every 2 or 3 days to carry out disciplinary action on the suspected subversive inmates there. He said that they would sometimes, graphic, squeeze his testicles with parallel metallic rods. They also pierced his nails and buttocks with a sharp pin, and his hands and legs were tied together with his head facing down. She said about Obama's attitude towards Britain, well, Dr. Rubenstein noted, same thing.
In addition to that, he has a hostility towards Western Europe, especially to England, as characterized by the symbolic action of returning the bust of Winston Churchill to the English, one of his first acts.
Okay. Granny Sarah's stories were passed on to Barack Obama's father, who reportedly carried a serious anti-British grudge his entire life. Now, I don't know if this plays a role in Barack Obama's life. I've been thinking about it today. And I want you to think about it this way. If this happened to your grandfather, if, let's say, the Canadians took your grandfather, and everybody thought the Canadians were good, took your grandfather, tortured him, did these things to your grandfather, then your father leaves you at a young age to go fight that kind of power in Canada. Your mother then leaves you with your grandparents, who are also fighting that kind of power inside your own country. She leaves you as well. It's kind of almost a familial deal. If I were the president of the United States, and that happened in my family, my grandfather had been tortured by Canada, you're damn right I wouldn't have a statue of the Prime Minister of Canada in my office, and I would say, take it back. I may not expose myself as being anti-Canadian because I don't want them to see me coming. That's the way I would deal with it if it happened to me. I don't know. I have no idea what's happening with Barack Obama, but boy, that sure makes sense now with the statue. I certainly wouldn't want somebody like me dealing with longtime allies, you know, in a complex world stage. He didn't volunteer this information during the campaign. Well, he did. It was briefly. He briefly mentioned it in his book, Dreams for My Father. He said his grandfather was found innocent and was held for no more than 6 months. That's it. Nobody's followed up on this. This was in a paper from overseas. Well, what does it mean? It may mean an awful lot. His grandfather's torture may have had absolutely no effect on Barack Obama. But you know, I don't believe we're only a product of our environment. But it does play a role on us. Obama's dad left him. Mom left to study critical theory. And there's this thing that's still missing. His pivot point. You see, we are a product of our environment only. We're just a sum of our experiences unless we reach down inside and we have a turning point, a pivot point, and we say, no, that's not true. I'm not that way. I've been lied to. But I haven't heard that pivot point. I know he changed his name from Barry to Barack. I know these things happened in his family, and this is not an attack on his family because that's all they're going to say this is.